And folks, we're back. This is episode 7, Isolation Shutdown in New York City. I'm with Josh. Josh, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, just talking about a horror movie that I watched about a Contagion. It wasn't Contagion. It was 28 Days Later.
Right.
Now I'm going to watch 28 Weeks Later, which was the sequel.
Uh,
Give myself more nightmares.
right. Speaking of nightmares, you had said before we started recording that you had you woke up, you went to the bathroom, you're like, oh my gosh, I just saw this movie.
Yeah, I was
And I
dreaming
think
about it.
the last time a movie that really did it to me was Stephen King's. Gosh, it wasn't it. It was oh gosh, I was about to say it. That movie, I mean, I've never been afraid of horror movies. I was an adult, and I had gone to sleep, and I actually woke up screaming,
Oh wow.
and then I
I haven't
started
had a
laughing.
good, fearful. I think Alien and Aliens got me, but I was really young then.
Uh-huh.
Uh, what other movies have really made an effect on me?
Okay, now this movie's in my mind. Okay, let's see. It wasn't it. That didn't bother me. Cat's Eye, no. Creep Show, no. I thought that was pretty funny. Cujo, no.
Oh,
Oh
there
man.
was actually a movie about viruses with Dustin Hoffman. What was it called? And that one freaked me out. It wasn't scary. It was just the thriller part of it got me. Like after seeing it, I thought what saved them in the movie. I couldn't see that actually really saving people in real life. And I was like, what would happen if it really happened? We're not going to have saving like that.
Uh-huh.
Outbreak, I think it was called.
Okay, I remember that. But this one took a move. The guy kept saying this weird thing. He's a good actor. You know, are you going to let me in? He was in a hotel, and
Oh, are you
gosh,
talking about The Shining?
no, not The Shining.
Oh, because that was definitely like, here's Johnny.
That didn't bother me as much. Now I'm looking for it. It's going to stay on me all day. Gosh, what was the name of that movie? I see the guy right now. Pet Cemetery down. Okay, I can't. Salem's Lot. That when I was a kid, that bothered me, but this movie bothered me as an adult. It really got to me.
This is something I've learned as a professor of physics is
Uh
when you're at the board, your IQ drops 50 points.
huh.
It's just the way it is. And so when you turn the video camera on, it's going to be like, oh crap,
Didn't
now I have to
catch
look
it.
it up.
Oh, okay, Harsh. Okay, that misery, the mist, no needful things, no. But come on, it's shining. Stand by me, suffering thinner. Gosh, it's not there. I'll think of it once we stop recording, and I'll have to tell you. But it was a really good movie, and it really got to me. And I woke up saying no, and then I gave a chuckle because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm inside my own apartment. I can't believe I'm afraid. I'm scared myself, but. That's really funny. Scary movies don't really get to me as much now because I see them as being really stupid. Like, okay, yeah, why is this person going downstairs? It's like you don't go downstairs. You want to run out the door if you think someone's inside, especially a killer. The other night I was watching Halloween, which is a really good
Oh,
movie.
way
It's
back.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, way back. But I like watching it. I think it's Michael Myers and Jamie Lee Curtis, really young Jamie Lee Curtis. The movie came out in '82 or something. And then I was watching Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds. Love
Mhm.
it. I've never seen, believe it or not, Psycho, the entire movie. Never
That's a
seen
good
it.
one. Yeah.
I thought it was boring, but I have it, and it looks interesting, so I'm going to try to watch it. North by Northwest, I haven't seen that, but I want to see it. Rearview Mirror, love it. I watch it every time it comes on. So these
Mhm.
are the things I've been doing in isolation. You know, watching these old movies that are, I think they're on the BBC and the movie channel. So whenever I see them, whenever I see that they're coming on, I'll sit up and I'll watch them. And I'm like, oh gosh, such a great movie. They don't make movies like that anymore. It's like,
Yeah, I've been watching Ingmar Bergman movies a lot
uh-huh,
lately, and I saw The Seventh Seal, and before that, I saw I don't know what the name of it is. It's The Good Life, I think it's called.
uh-huh,
And I've been taken by this movie is like destroyed movies for me, dramas, because let's see, how did it go? This movie Yi Yi, I think it's Taiwanese, this Taiwanese. And at some point I was looking up, it was on many lists of top movies of the 21st century.
uh-huh,
So, 15, 20 years in, I forget when I saw it a few years ago. And I watched this movie and I was like, I don't know why I even made such a big deal about it. It's kind of long, maybe pushing 3 hours, 2 hours
Uh-huh.
or so.
Right.
And then after I watched it for the next week or two, I was just like, I kept thinking about it.
Right.
And then I watched it again and I was, oh my God, this movie's so nailed.
Right.
It's not trying to be anything that is not. It just portrays a family, more than an extended family, through modern times. And it's so timeless that any movie that I see, if there's an artifice or if it's over dramatized,
Mm-hmm.
I just can't stand it. Like Breaking Bad. I watched some of it. I'm like, it's not.
Uh-huh.
It's not telling me about me, about humanity. This is something dramatized in order to get me to watch the next episode.
Right.
Yi is just. I mean, it's like Woody Allen wishes he could make movies like that, and
Uh-huh.
Bergman does stuff like that,
Right.
and yeah. And so this girl I was dating, she had Movie Pass back when Movie Pass was around,
Mm-hmm.
and she would sometimes bring me out to movies because she had all these free passes, and I would always walk away being like, "That's not just because you." She's like, "You always say that," so
Right.
that's how it goes.
Well, I just saw the movie Storm of the Century, Stephen King. And it was so simple. They didn't have a monster, but the guy had
Mhm.
this creepy voice. It really got to me, and it scared the bejesus out of me. So when I was sleeping, I woke up. I actually jumped straight up in my bed and I said, "No!" And I started laughing. I'm like, what is this? That movie actually got to me. Even when it comes on to this day, I'll think about it. I'm like, gosh, I should watch that. I mean, it's really long. I think it was like, it went over like 5 nights, but I would just, you know, uh, fast forward to that one scene with the guy's voice, this really creepy voice. No, you don't want to do that. I'm coming back. And I don't know, it just got all over me. But so that was really, really scary movie that got to me.
Well, I
But
had a piece of trivia so for some reason Anthony Hopkins was in conversation here. He won the Oscar for Hannibal Lecter.
mhm.
I think he set the record for the shortest screen time. I think it was 16 minutes he was on the screen for that movie, and it's so memorable. Talk
He's
about
a,
creepy.
yeah, he's a really good actor. I think I like his voice. I could listen to him all day. His voice is so, I don't know, this just really calming and at the same time kind of creepy and but I like it. It's not like a real strong, powerful voice, but it has that tenor that's just like, it just goes.
Mhm.
I could listen to him.
Hello, Clarice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Clarice, Fava Beans, Fava
Speaking
Beans.
of Stephen King and horror movies, and I think I mentioned to you before did I mention to you before his book on writing
No.
that a lot of people recommend that. I read it. I really enjoyed it. Like I'm not, I don't think, I think it's the only book of Stephen King's that I read.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you know, he was an alcoholic for a while.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was an alcoholic, and he says he doesn't remember writing Cujo because he
Ah.
was so blitzed. And he said, and I'm not going to get the line perfect, but he says something like I don't remember writing Cujo, and he goes, "That's too bad because it's a really good book."
That's funny. No, speaking about watching things on TV, so we're talking about TV right now. I heard that there's a show on Netflix called Ozark. It's supposed to be really good,
Mm.
and it involves money laundering, and these people, they get caught up in this rigmarole, and they can't get out of it. So that, and of course the Tiger King, which I've heard. I mean, I haven't watched it, and I doubt that I'll watch it. It's sort of like a docu-series, I think.
Mm.
But from what I hear, it's just nothing but a lot of talk. Like,
It
I
looks
want to be
uninteresting to me.
right,
There's nothing appealing about it.
right.
I could be, and maybe I would love it if I saw it.
I want to be entertained. I don't want all this like dead space and someone's walking here today. I'm like, what's the big deal? And I think people like it because there's nothing else to do because everyone is in isolation. So we're trying to find things to entertain us. I got rid of yesterday or 2 days ago, HBO and Showtime because I never watched them.
Mhm.
I got them because I didn't like going to the movies, and they would always have, after it was at the movies, they would have the latest movie, on the show, on the TV. But as of lately, everything that's at the movies that they're putting on is horrible. Now, I did like their series, like Game of Thrones. Love that, certain parts of it,
Mhm.
but there's nothing else good on HBO. So I got rid of it. And I don't miss it. I thought I was going to miss it. Now, there is a
Yeah.
show that's coming out. deals with the family that's similar to the Murdoch family. It's a good series. It's supposed to be coming back on, but I doubt it's going to come on now since the big shutdown. They haven't had a chance to record, but I'll just probably watch it on Netflix. But there's nothing on TV. So in
Yeah,
addition to being alone, you're alone as far as entertainment wise, because there's really nothing there. So I find myself watching old movies or channel surfing, looking for something old to watch.
can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, because and then when I do find it, the quality to me is much better than the movies that they have today, because the movies today is like, bam, bam, thank you, ma'am. They want to give you a quick fix. And then you're like, okay, what happened? When I go to, and I mentioned this in one of our recordings, when I go see a movie or read a book, I want to be entertained. I want to be able to immerse myself in the characters as if though I am there with them. And I
Yeah, if
can
you feel
see,
like, oh, I'm just watching a screen, and then you're like, oh, I popped out of it again.
yeah,
I hate when that happens.
yeah, I want to be there. I want to walk with them as they're trying to solve the mystery. They redid the movie Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. And I thought, I'm like, wow, I love the old version. I love the book. So I've got to see the movie. And it was with Michelle Pfeiffer. So I'm thinking this is going to be good.
Mhm.
The first 10 minutes, I'm like, what the heck is this about? This is horrible. Like, I don't want to watch this. Like, come on, give me something that's really entertaining. So it's like those days are long gone. The movies that were out there before I was born and the movies that I couldn't watch as a kid, I'm now watching them and I find them so much more entertaining. Although, like I said, I haven't seen Psycho and it's black and white and I've seen bits and pieces. Now I want to see the entire movie to see what it's about, to see the different scenes and whatnot.
Mhm.
So what can I say? So what's been going on since we last spoke, Josh?
Oh man, a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, but I got to mention, you're saying about what's it called? People, there being nothing on TV. The webinar that you saw that I gave on
Mm-hmm.
habits. So everyone, when you finish watching this, if you don't mind my plugging it, go to my podcast. It's on my joshuaspodek.com and look up what's it called. It's called life-changing habits, even or especially under lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been getting tremendous feedback. Like people are
Oh.
writing me over and over saying, I never realized I could do these things before. And it was so easy, like with that mindset shift. And the reason I mention it now is that when you have habits, you watch less TV. Like TV is a distraction.
Yep.
And so a lot of people are saying, like, I didn't realize I could just like turn it off and not have it. And it's leading to companies are now, we're creating a course around that webinar to
Right.
deliver to companies. And it looks like, well, I don't, knock on wood, but like the first deal, like looks like it's going down. So it's cool to help people in situations like that. So we're working on the marketing and working out the syllabus and things like that. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the big things is that my mom and stepfather went on a camping trip. So they have what they call an R-Pod. I think that's a brand name for a trailer that goes behind the minivan. So they went out and the house was empty except me. What a relief. I mean, I was
Any
overwhelmed with the
wild
feeling.
parties?
On the contrary, the opposite, like just relaxing.
Right.
Because I'm old.
Yeah.
I mean, I was overwhelmed with a feeling of gratitude and welcomeness while, for the months leading up to it, because
Right.
they're hosting me. But I didn't realize how cramped I felt and how this is going to touch on. Can we talk about the town hall that's going to happen on Wednesday?
Yes.
That one of the themes that I want to talk about is how I think one of the things you said to be prepared for is that they're going to say, stop talking to us. Look, at the liberals are the ones who are saying these things and they're not doing it themselves.
And this is in reference to climate change, where you say liberals are,
well,
okay.
General environmental behavior.
Right.
So not just climate change, but deforestation and
Yep.
all those, everything, resource depletion. And it didn't occur to me. I kind of felt like, well, it's my mom and stepfather. Of course they're supporting me.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. I mean, they're not open to my message. And it finally dawned on me that they're supporting me in the sense of like, you're a good man. We want you to be happy and so forth.
Right.
But looking back, I think virtually all the times that I talk to them about the environment, I'm generally speaking about my perspective. And overwhelmingly, the response on their part is defensiveness. And look, we just don't want to, just don't talk about it. Like, we've worked out what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And we're doing
Right.
what we're doing. We're not doing what we're not going to do.
Uh-huh.
And stop pushing us. Well, I probably have pushed them at times, but I think that's the small minority of communications that I've had with them.
Okay.
They're pretty pro-liberal.
Okay.
But I think that's pretty indicative of everyone. I mean, it's really hard for me to think of anyone who has acted meaningfully, not straws, we're beyond straws. Anyone on any side of any political spectrum. I don't know why I in a certain sense, I don't know why I have hope.
Well,
I do, but I think people really, it's hitting me. How do I put it? How much people really, really just do not want to get it. Like, they'll talk about sea level rise or something like that, but people really want to keep doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's in some ways surprising how surprised people are that I would act on the recommendations. Like, I'm just staying below the IPCC recommendations for emissions. That's it. That's what we're supposed to do.
Well, when you say that they just don't get it, what is it that they're supposed to get? I mean, I don't necessarily think, well yeah, what do you mean by they don't get it? Because they don't view, I guess they have a different take on what they can do to make society better, coming from, looking at it from a climate viewpoint.
My read of the situation is that one of the things that drives me is that the more that I understand the patterns, the more that it seems that we have overshot the planet's carrying capacity for human civilization. And that is to say, we're using more resources than the planet can replenish.
Okay.
Let's just go with that for a second. Maybe some people don't believe it, but let's say that's the case for the sake of argument. Or actually, even if it's not the case, people believe it's the case. And if they believe it's the case, then the population is going to go down at some point. That means people are going to die prematurely through suffering. If you keep doing if you believe that your actions will contribute to that, how can you not change? I mean, I think people get that if I inhale a cigarette and blow it in a baby's face,
right?
I think people know, don't do that. Well, the exhaust coming out the back of a jet, for example, is much, much greater. I mean, what comes out of a cigarette is like nothing compared to what a jet produces.
Right.
So if the baby's far away, but it's much more pollution, to me, it seems unconscionable not to act on that in some way. But most people are not reacting.
Yeah, but they're acting on it in their own little way. And I mean, simply because, remember you gave me a challenge I said that I don't like for the plastic and the glass to touch. I'd like to have separate containers for it when I'm throwing away garbage. And you said, okay, let's see if you can do it. And I said, okay, I managed to do it. So I said, I'm going to keep doing it. I don't like for it to touch. Well, interestingly enough, I still don't like for the glass and whatnot to touch. And I don't view it as my way as changing or helping the environment. I just don't like for it to touch. At the same time, I don't pollute. I don't litter. I don't throw garbage on the ground when I'm walking. If I have something, I just don't like, I'm just going to throw it away. I don't want this, like most people do. And to me, I'm doing my part, to not trash the world, my surroundings. So, but if I need to go someplace, and if I can get there by flying, I'm going to fly. If I want to go overseas and look and see what's there, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to take in, it's not going to enter my mind that, oh, look at the pollution from the airplane. No, I'm not going to think that at all. I will look at, different plants that are, companies that are polluting, and I'm like, okay, you shouldn't be doing that. Come on. But simply because I'm not looking at it or doing some of the things that you're doing doesn't mean that I don't get it or I don't want to change, because perhaps I'm looking at that there's nothing for me to change. I'm doing my share. I'm not neighboring my neighborhood. Not neighboring. I'm not polluting my neighborhood.
Mhm.
I'm not throwing garbage all over the place. I'm making certain that the garbage gets into the receptacle. Uh, I I'm not running my water excessively. Uh, so for me, that's what I need to do, and I'm happy with that.
Mhm.
So I would look at you and what you're doing and say, okay, a bit extreme, but he's living by his values, and that makes him who he is. He's happy, so I'm happy for him. So I would say for your parents, your mom and your stepdad, maybe that's what they're looking at. It's not that they don't get it, or they don't want to get it, or they don't want to ascribe to some of the things that you're doing, or that, okay, well, we're old and we're set in our ways, but the little thing that they are doing, they feel comfortable with that they are contributing. And
So
maybe
I
that's,
think that
yes.
when you talk about my behavior being extreme, I think the comparison that you're comparing me probably against most Americans, most people that you observe yourself. And when you talk about how people feel about what they're doing, nature doesn't react to our feelings. It doesn't care how we feel.
Right.
It reacts to our behavior.
Hmm.
And comparing me to Americans, I may be extreme compared to most Americans, but the environment doesn't care about that comparison. The comparison that's relevant to me is what the planet can regenerate, what the planet can sustain. So if
Right.
I feel like what I'm doing is perfectly sustainable, that doesn't matter how I feel. It matters what actually happens. So to me, that's the comparison that's relevant.
Hmm.
So if people have an opinion that I mean, I'm sure that the most polluting people feel like they're not polluting. I mean, that is the case. But that's what I'm talking about not getting it. If your comparison is just like how I feel, I mean, people commit crimes and they don't feel like they're committing crimes. If someone's still getting hurt, they're still going to go to jail. My point is not a legal thing here. It's just like there are lots of places where you might feel fine, but if you feel like your plane isn't really polluting that much, or it's not such a problem, that's not the relevant issue. How you feel about it.
Hmm.
I could. That's that. I mean, but that is where things are right now. Most people, most Americans, they just feel like, hey, I'm one of the good guys.
Right.
Well, we're all going to feel great on the way to, our sky's looking like Beijing's, not right now, but usually. And I'm telling you about all the plastic and stuff by the side of the road right
Right.
now.
But I remember reading that somewhere that we have decreased our carbon footprint, not just since the COVID outbreak and whatnot, but before that. I think for the past few years, our level of pollution has gone down significantly.
Measurably, I wouldn't say significantly. I
Okay,
mean, we've
measurably.
switched lots of natural gas and there's a lot more methane instead of carbon dioxide.
Okay, compared to where we were. So we are making stride. We're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting there.
Oh man, not even close. And not by the numbers that I'm aware of. It's um, I'm trying to think of a comparison of just something like um, it's such tiny changes compared to how far over we are. And in any case, our population is growing so much that it's swamped.
And I'm sure by this time next year, we'll probably have a lot more people on the planet with everyone being in lockdown. There are probably a lot of babies being produced right now.
Yeah,
Join
it's
the that will join us in in our efforts. But again, you say that emotions has nothing to do with emotions. But I think
well, the leadership, the change in behavior is all about emotions,
okay, because I
but
think
the consequence to the environment doesn't come from how we feel.
right, but I think that that would get to me. It seems as if though a lot of people try to play on our emotions to get us to change and to do what they want us to do. And I think that in order to do it, there has to be an emotional element
Oh yeah,
uh, that has to come into play.
yeah.
So I I don't want to say that I well I say what how do I want to say this? The emotional compass that I have is definitely like not like yours because again, I feel as though what I am doing, my share, and not polluting, littering, or whatnot have you. Uh, I feel good about that. I don't think that the. I mean, I said that yours is a little bit extreme, but I mean, picking up trash or here and there. I mean, that's not necessarily extreme. I mean, that's just something I would say as a hobby. You feel good about doing that. You want to do it. But I think some of the other things, maybe, not flying. Uh, if you were trying to push that on someone else, if you were preaching that, like a lot of people do, I would say that it is an extreme. So I take it back. Well, I take back saying that you're an extreme because I know a little bit about you. But I would say that you are an extreme if you were trying to push that and you were trying to, or you were to say that by me not doing that, I'm not doing anything to help save the environment. Do you follow me? I
Let
would
me see
look
if I
at,
get it.
see, let me say it again.
Uh-huh.
So what you're doing, knowing you, I wouldn't say that you are an extremist. Okay. Like, okay, this makes him happy. Fine. He's not out trying to preach to me to do it. Now, if we were together on a day-to-day basis, like you and your parents, and you were to
Hmm.
say, oh, Rob, well, why would you put that there? Why not put it here? Let's say if I forgot to separate the plastic from the glass, you say, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you put that there? Like, oh, okay, I would do it the first day.
Hmm.
Okay. Let's say 2 days later, I forgot. You reminded me. Okay, fine. And you reminded me again. Then I would start thinking, okay, I get it.
Hmm.
Okay. Or if I were to go out to eat, which I don't do, you say, well, why would you eat that? Why don't you try this? Well, I don't like that. And if there was like a constant reminder coming from you,
Hmm.
I would probably go to my room and say, okay, what is going on with Josh? He's
Hmm.
becoming an extremist. He wants me to do the things that he's doing. And I'm happy with the way that I'm living. I'm not going outside and throwing paper on someone's yard. I'm not going outside and doing this or doing that. I do my best, to recycle. Yes, I want to take a flight every so often, but why does Josh have to always tell me, well, you know this? Then I would say that you're being an extremist. So if that's how you're coming across to your parents,
Hmm.
I would say Josh is an extremist. But if you're not, and if you're just living your way and you're not saying anything, like, well, okay, well, I don't eat that. Well, I don't do this. I want to do this. I would say, okay, fine. Like you think you shared with me the other day, you said that your stepdad had brought you onions in a plastic or something.
Yeah.
So I would say, okay, I would probably say the same thing. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. If you don't like it, just put it to the side. Don't tell me. Just go your merry little way.
Well, he's picked up that if he eats meat or fish, I don't say anything about that,
Uh-huh.
even though that affects the environment.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that affected me. So
Mm-hmm.
when it encroaches on me, if I'm going to eat, I don't want to support that. So to me, that would have been the same as buying me meat, which for people who don't know, I'm vegan. So if someone bought me meat, I'd be like, what's this? I mean, it really felt like if someone bought me a sweater.
But he didn't buy you
And
meat.
he didn't. But
Right.
had he bought me meat or had he bought me something packaged, roughly same, I guess meat
So
would
what
be a
did he,
little more
what did he,
serious, but
what was it that he brought you? Onions?
onions in a bag, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And we have previously at the store, I've avoided getting bagged onions in favor of packaged bagged onions in favor of loose ones.
So had he gotten the onions, taken them out of the bag and presented them to you, you wouldn't have been none the wiser and you would have accepted them.
If I had no idea, yeah. And I think
Right.
he was, I couldn't tell if he was doing that or not.
Mhm. What if he had gotten you the onions, presented them to you, you took the onions, you chopped them up, and then later that night he said, oh, Josh, by the way, those were to come in a plastic bag.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, it's happened as a vegan that sometimes I eat something and then
Uh-huh.
afterward someone tells me, like one time
You don't
I
flip
was with a
out, do you?
friend, we ordered some burritos and I was halfway through the burrito
Mm-hmm.
and we realized that they'd given me his chicken burrito and given him my veggie burrito. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that these little cubes, the chicken was cut into these cubes. And I was like, this is
Right.
the firmest tofu I've ever had.
Right.
And so I was, I ate chicken. I don't count that. I don't feel guilt about that.
Right.
There's no intent on my part.
So you
And it
don't
was,
flip out about it.
no, I mean, it's not, there was no intent on anyone's part. It
Right.
was a
Right.
simple accident.
Well, now that you say that, I have to admit that when I was coming over to your place those times, and I like, gosh, I'm always coming here, and he's always giving me something to eat. I feel as though I should bring something. I'm like, I'm not going to bring any wine. And then I thought, I'm like, well, maybe I could stop by the farmer's market and get him a vegetable or something. And then this fear came over me. I'm like, oh no, I can't. I'm like, what if he doesn't eat this kind? What if it's like a special kind that, the soils? I'm like, I'm not going to do anything. But I felt guilty just like showing up. It's like, gosh, he's going to offer me some of the food that he's making. I really felt kind of bad because I'm thinking, whenever you go to someone's house, you want to at least bring something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, well, I could bring fruit. I'm like, I eat fruit for dessert. And I'm like, but I don't know what kind of fruit he eats. And I don't know if
Well, I
it's
sent
from
you
the
the
right
email,
farmer's
right?
market. I'm sorry?
I sent you the email that I send to most people saying, nothing, bring nothing is fine, but people feel obliged. If you want to bring something, just please no packaged,
No,
unpackaged.
I didn't get that
I
email.
didn't send it.
No.
There's an email that I send. It's a
Okay.
link to a post.
Okay. And if you sent it, I didn't see it, but I don't recall seeing that. So
I
there was
try to
this,
address this issue with people because I know it can be an issue. My goal in asking people not to bring packaged stuff is not to make life difficult, but how did it become so hard in America to buy food without polluting? It's a really weird thing. Like once you get it, there are a few people who've come over and they've been like, yeah, I never went to the farmer's market before and I just bought a couple apples there. Thank you for,
yeah.
and I so much prefer personally now. I used to read the stuff about how, there's no seasons in supermarkets. Everything's all vegetables available all year round.
Right.
It's all shipped in from California or wherever. And it all looks like plastic. I was like, yeah, whatever. It tastes good. So I don't care. But now I've gone over and I get all my stuff from the farm and things like that. And I just can't, I walk into it, it looks like plastic and the flavor is just not there.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't want to hit people over the head with the stuff, but they can always bring nothing. And I say that's fine.
Right.
But it really, if we live in a world where it's difficult to buy food without packaging, like what's happened to us?
Yeah.
Food doesn't grow with packaging. I mean, if you want to say a steak is packaged by the rest of the cow, you can, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
Bananas, okay, it's got to peel, but that's not what I'm talking about either.
Right. So you should probably at this point just explain to people, just in case they're listening for the first time, when you're saying packaging, because someone would say, well, what is the guy talking about? How else are you going to get it? So it's not that it can't be inside, like in a bag or something when you go to the farmer's market. But so when you're saying packaging, yes.
I forget if I mentioned to you that my TEDx talk, there's a bit of talk going on about making it into some sort of TV something or other.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking to a PR person and a producer and a couple of people. Who knows if something will happen? And so I have to make a short video about myself,
right,
to complement the TEDx thing. Actually, it's 10 minutes long. I don't think it would probably be too long for here, but I go through. Here's one little thread of it. So this might take a couple minutes. Sorry if I go on too long, but when I decided to challenge myself to go without flying for a year, I would not do that if I thought if I thought it was impossible, and if I didn't have some expectation of something working out. So I traced back my earliest roots of acting personally, doing some sort of experiment. And the airplane one was the last in a long, the most recent in a long series of these things, tracing back to when I was a kid growing up. I had a love-hate relationship with meat. I grew up eating meat.
Mm-hmm.
I thought meat was necessary to live. You know, it was one of the four food groups at the
Right.
time. That's what we had, no pyramid yet.
Uh-huh.
And so some meat I liked and some I didn't. The stuff that I liked was hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken nuggets, the very processed stuff,
Right.
wings, drumsticks, steaks. Those they were too close to, I could identify as an animal, and I didn't want to eat that. So my parents would make me eat this stuff anyway, and it would make me gag, but I still felt it was necessary to live. So I'd keep eating it. And then I came across this book, Diet for a Small Planet by Francis Moore Lepay, and
Right.
didn't intend to find it. I don't know, just read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that meat wasn't necessary to live, but I still kept eating it because I liked it.
Right.
Until college, there was the first time that I bought a chicken breast at the store and cut it up and breaded it and made chicken nuggets, fried it up and made chicken nuggets from scratch myself. That inadvertently connected, I connected a chicken breast, which was clearly from an animal. I don't know how I bought it. I was probably trying to save money or something simple like that. And that connected it to chicken nuggets, which were cross-processed. And suddenly all processed meats became, I could tell that they were from an animal.
Uh-huh.
And I think I ate meat once more after that and then never again. So that was 1990. And then there was a similar process that happened, slightly different, but somewhat similar, with hydrogenated oil and trans
Mm-hmm.
fats. And that was a few years later. And a few years after that, with corn syrup, I cut out corn syrup. And each time I really thought, how can I get by without this stuff? I just thought of corn syrup and Crisco as like regular stuff because I grew up, it was all around me. Then at some point later, I did the same thing happened with processed food. So I was, you know, I do whole wheat, but I won't do white bread. And each time I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. And each time after cutting something out, my diet became more varied.
Okay.
That all leads up. All of these changes were changes that helped me personally in the process. It was more healthy, saved money. And then was the time that you probably saw in my TEDx talks, I talked about multiple times, when I looked down at my garbage one day, this is like 5-6 years ago, and said, this is more garbage than I'm comfortable producing. And, you know, I would say at the time, you know, government should make some sort of rule, or corporations should change in some way. But what can I do? But I thought, well, for this stuff, I can stop producing at least this much. And that led to me challenging myself to see if I could go for 1 week without buying any packaged food.
Right.
So I let myself eat what was in the cupboard, and I didn't really know if I could make it. I ended up making it 2.5 weeks. And in that time, it was the first time I boiled beans that I bought from dry beans from the bulk store, filling in my own bag. And then over the next several months, my practice evolved to where I could make some pretty good food that tasted really good, and it was really cheap and delicious, nutritious. I just love my stuff. To everyone's taste, I don't know, but it's really good. And everyone's at this is the stage where everyone's like, oh, you're privileged and you can do that. And I was like, okay, yeah. But when I brought the single mom from a food desert over to my place to try it out, she was like, come up to the Bronx and teach my community, because this is our way out of getting all the McDonald's stuff.
Right.
And more than the material change, I mean, my food was more delicious. It was more convenient. People come over more, not in the virus, but then. But the mental shift happened that, see, this change, for me not to get packaged food, packaging pollutes your world. I mean, mine too, but also yours. So, if I'm going to change this, I'm benefiting others. It felt like at my expense, but
Right.
as it turned out, it's to my benefit. And once I got that mental shift to expect that if I act on my environmental values, even if it feels at the time like it's going to be a burden or a chore or a sacrifice, I expected that it would improve my life. So a year and a half later, when I came across a video that said that flying New York, LA round trip warmed the globe about a year's worth of driving,
Right.
I thought, well, that's a lot. And, you know, I was comparing myself to people around me and figuring, living in Manhattan without a car, I'm probably polluting a lot less than most people. But when I looked it up, because of the flying, I was way over the Paris Agreement recommendations for one person. And that's just for climate. You know, that's not even counting going and digging holes and pushing people away from the land and trashing it and stuff like that, and having a military to keep the supply lines open and all this sort of stuff. those are all separate things.
Right.
And so I thought, I wonder if I can go for a year without flying. I mean, first I thought a week, then I thought a month, but that's not much. And my gut was like, are you kidding? You got to make money. You got a family.
Yep.
You got, if I want to adventure, if I want to see the world, if I want to get different cultures, I got to fly. And I just thought it's absolutely necessary. And I never thought about it any other way. It's just flying was a part of life. So then I thought, well, look, I'm trying to live by my values here. Let's give it a shot.
Right.
And intellectually, I thought also, that's how I felt with the food, with the no packaging. And if that I didn't think that would work out, maybe this will work out. And so I said, all right, I'm going to start right now. One year, no flying. I knew day 366, I would be on a flight. But and then right off the bat, work suffered, family, there are all these issues. But then after a few months, things changed because I didn't just replace flying with crying in my room. I replaced it with creating adventure, creating connection with family, taking control of my career. And I got more than what I thought I gave up, to where about 3 months in, I said, I'm going to go for another year. And I kept saying another year. So now I'm in my 5th year of not flying.
Okay.
And in terms of not packaging, I do get some packaging. Actually, I was showing you before that I made some stuff with beets. And so here we bought it at the store here. And so there's just this type of packaging I keep track of.
Right.
So it turns out it was organic. So I have to save this. I'm going to bring it back home to keep it in my trash, not in their trash.
Mm-hmm.
And the beets are really delicious. It was really good tonight. And so now I throw away my garbage once in 2019, once in 2018, once in 2017. So I've thrown out my garbage 3 times since 2016.
Oh,
and
wow.
my food is more delicious than ever, cheaper than ever, more convenient. I spend less time when I don't want to cook, but when friends are over and I want to make a show of it, I spend more time cooking. But then I'm not watching TV. I don't have a TV. It took me a long time to get rid of a TV because I didn't want to be someone, the old joke, like, how do you know if someone doesn't have a TV? They tell you. And I don't want to be that tight. But then if someone ever says that, I say, do you know how someone has an iPhone? They tell you. Anyway, so that was my little thread about how something that I never intended to find that book, Diet for a Small Planet. I didn't intend for cooking a chicken breast to connect that stuff.
What's the message that's bringing everybody together behind President Trump?
And the next thing I know, I'm expecting that by not flying for a year, I would enjoy it.
Right.
And I did. Mm-hmm. So that was a long answer. Sorry, but I was kind of practicing for this. I don't know, maybe I'll be on TV saying this.
No, that was good. But just from listening to what you're saying, it seems as though that you are happy and content with what you're doing because in your mind, you are doing your part, living by your values and doing what you deem necessary to, I kind of don't want to say save the environment or the climate, but when we get down to it, that's in essence what you're doing.
Well, the environment is, to me, an abstract thing. It's Earth's environment. I mean, I don't care if we trash the environment of Mars. That doesn't bother me. It's other people, how it affects other people. So if I'm polluting the world, I can't see any other way of putting it, then it's hurting them. And I was born in a polluted environment. I've been out of the city for a while, but when I'm in the city, every morning I wake up, I got to cough up some phlegm, and that's from the city's air. And if I were in New Delhi, it'd be, I don't know how many times worse. So I don't like that. I don't want to do that to others.
What is the air like when you wake up in the morning now?
Here?
Yes.
It's pretty fresh.
So you can.
I don't think there's a lot of pollution up here in the air.
So
I think per capita people are producing more.
Right. So do you feel the difference in the air? Can you
yeah.
breathe the difference? It's fresher, crisper? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have to cough up phlegm in the morning. I mean, the bigger difference is that it's colder because the altitude. But you'd expect that. It's not that high up. It's maybe 1,000 feet, something like that.
Right. So your home.
Me, this is about other people. This is about hurting people and not hurting people. And maybe that sounds blunt, but I don't see any other way of if we're decreasing the planet's ability to sustain human life and society. I don't see any other way of looking at it than it's hurting people.
So a couple of things that just popped in my head. Have you met someone who cooks like you?
Yes.
Okay.
In person, I don't think in person. But I have a few big role models. So
Okay.
Rob Greenfield is this guy. I don't know if he's still there because he spent a year in Orlando, Florida, and he pledged his challenge was to eat only food that he grew himself
Uh-huh.
or that he foraged from wild.
But is he flying?
I think he did fly, but I'm not sure because I think he went up to Wisconsin that year at some point.
So I wonder how many people on the planet like you, or New York.
Oh, New York, probably besides me, probably maybe none.
That are at that level that you are at.
Yeah, I don't know anyone. I mean, Greta.
I don't think
Um,
Greta. Who's Greta? Greta. She's not in New York,
no,
is
she's
she?
not in New York.
Oh.
I'm going in the whole world.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you some role models though. There's Bea Johnson, who wrote a book, Zero Waste Living, and she was on my podcast. And
Uh-huh.
her family of 4 produces the 4 of them, 2 sons, right? And whenever someone's like, "Oh, you can do it because you don't have kids," but if you had kids, well, she's got 2 kids,
Uh-huh.
and a jar this size fits all their garbage for a year.
Mm.
Then there's a documentary I saw in it was about some places in New Zealand, some families in New Zealand that were making like sustainable living in some
Right.
ways. And one guy talked about I think it's he and his wife have a home that they haven't, what do you call it? Like it's a food jungle.
Uh-huh.
It's lots of trees that produce, almost all the trees I think produce fruit and are edible in some way. And when there's drone shots from above, you can see that around it's just regular like manicured lawns.
Right.
But they got this like jungle there.
Mm-hmm.
What I really liked about them was they said this was like a brownfield before. It was trashed.
Mm-hmm.
People say, why don't you just go live off in the country if you like nature so much? And they said, I don't want to go to the country and make it more civilized.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take what we trashed and turn that back into rewilding it. And that people ask me like, why don't you go live in the country? My goal
So I
is
ask you that. Why don't you leave the city?
Because this is not about my comfort. Actually, you said before, I'm living the way I want to live. Look, I would be probably more happy if I were in a different time to the way I always joke about it is to be like, I go for the Coke and Horse, but like to like just enjoy easy living.
Yeah, but I'm glad you said that because it just brings me back to the poem that I wrote, Why the Cage Bird Sings, because the cage bird doesn't know anything else outside of living in that cage. So you say now, you'll be comfortable living in another time, a time where we didn't have all the luxuries things that we deem as being luxury that we have now. Well, it's easy to say that now. And if you were there during that time, you wouldn't be aware of the dishwasher or things that we have. Now you can say, oh, well, I don't need them because I can wash my dishes myself. I don't need a car because I can get around on a bike. So I would feel perfectly comfortable living in another time. But if you were zapped back in another time, knowing what you know now, would you be able to survive? And would you like it? It's easy to say that you would because you have these luxuries and you can turn them off and say, hey, I don't need them. I don't want this in my life right now.
Well, this is
I don't have to have it.
In my 3rd TEDx talk, I talk about this. That what I say is that most people, when faced with the possibility of acting somewhat more sustainably than they do, they tend to look for excuses to say, look, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. What more can I do? What I do doesn't matter, things like that. And I say, if you want to look for excuses, billions of people will back you up. Probably virtually everyone on the planet will back you up. Yes, you should keep flying because they want to keep flying too. But I suggest looking for role models. And if you don't mind me talking about what I talk about in the TEDx talk,
Not at all, but I just want to just one thing I want to say. I don't necessarily see them as being excuses when you say that there are billions of people that will back them up because they're saying that they want to fly also. That's not an excuse. That's just, hey, this is what I like doing.
You can find many reasons to like what you're doing.
Right.
I don't want to, if the term triggered something, I didn't mean for that.
I did it. I'm trying to, I am listening to what you're saying and I'm trying to respond way other people will respond, because again, we don't necessarily feel as though, as you had said earlier when we started out, that you said that your parents, you just don't want to change. why is it that you said something along those lines. And
Yeah,
I
although I
don't
was
think
talking
it's
about
necessarily,
everybody at that point, not just them. I mean,
okay,
everybody.
well, I don't think it's necessarily that they don't want to change. It's just that everyone feels as though that I am doing my part. Your part, you feel as if though, hey, I can do a little more, but that's you. I don't have to be at that level. I'm comfortable, or everyone else, they're comfortable doing what they're doing, and they feel as if though they too are having have an effect or doing just as much as you're doing. I mean, simply because your garbage, the garbage that you threw away, you only threw it away, like you said, for the past 6 months, and I'm probably doing it every week. I'm probably doing something else. I'm not taking my garbage and throwing it all over the world. I'm putting it into a receptacle, and then I'm putting it into the trash bins. I'm putting the glass where the glass belongs, and the plastic where the plastic. So to me, I'm doing my share. I'm not going to. I'm trying to stay away from the EX word. I'm not at the level where you are, but I feel that what I'm doing is just as important as what you're doing. And I think that a lot of other people would say the same thing. So you could say, well, you guys are giving excuses, or you can find other people saying, well, I do it because I like it. I don't necessarily think that that's what a lot of these people are thinking, that I do it because I like it because of this. They feel that they too are doing their part in saving the environment, saving the world, or what have you, because I am not a big polluter. I am not doing some of the things that we see that are happening. Let's say someone who's living in a house and they keep their yard manicured and whatnot, and they're taking their garbage to the trash can. They're not using a lot of what do you call it? Gosh, the word escapes me. Aluminum foil. They're taking it, they're putting it where it belongs, and they're not putting all the mixing the garbage together, the recycling bin and what have you. So they too feel as if though, hey, I'm doing what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean,
But
during World War II, we had to mobilize to fight Hitler and
uh-huh.
Germany and Japan, and I'm sure some people wrote very angry letters to Hitler, feeling like I'm doing my part.
No, it's a bit
I
extreme
don't think
to
Hitler
use
was really
Hitler.
affected by angry letters, though.
Yeah,
You
but I
got
think,
to, it's not what you feel. That's the thing about science. If people can not like science, they can feel like it's wrong. That's
right.
their business. But it's,
But I don't think you can't use Hitler in a situation like that.
yeah, I was overdoing it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's,
But
I'm sure people feel like they're doing a lot, but that's not the relevant measure.
okay.
If they, I mean, if they disagree with the science, that's a whole other story. But I'm talking about people who believe the science, who believe that this is happening. And so
Mhm.
in their own belief system, it's contradictory. If they don't believe it,
Well, no,
that's
I
one
don't think.
thing.
Well, when you say it's a contradictory, how so? Because they're not acting the way you are. They're not as conscious as you are and doing
It's
some
not,
of the things
I'm
you're
not the
doing.
measure. I'm not the
Uh-huh.
measure.
What is the measure?
You keep talking about what I want.
Uh-huh.
I'm not, it's not my opinion that matters either.
Right. So
It's very clear. If you go and look up like what humans have to do to change to not get the outcomes that everyone's predicting, that's what I'm going by.
uh-huh.
I mean, there's lots of laws that I have opinions on, but you got to read
Right.
what's on the books.
Right.
It doesn't matter. No judge is going to say, "What does Josh think about this?" or "What do you think about it?" Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Exactly. And
Ignorance of
right. But the same people that you're saying, we've got to go and read this, we've got to go and read that, I could probably find other sources that would say, it's not to that level.
That's what I'm talking. I'm not talking about. If I'm going to talk to people who are disagreeing on the science, that's a whole other story.
Yep.
I'm talking about people who agree with the science,
Uh-huh.
who feel that if we keep doing what we're doing, we're all going to go down, and they
Right.
still do it. For them, the measure is what they believe themselves.
Right.
It's a whole other story if we're talking about people who disagree with this. I'm not talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm going to talk to conservatives, because the liberals, they believe it. And they're disagreeing. They're going against their own beliefs.
Wait. Who you say they? Who is they? Who you say they? I'm sorry.
Well, the people at the climate march. Well, I can't say. I don't know the behavior of the people there.
Right. So, but you're saying that they believe that they believe it, but they're not living by the values, or I missed something, Josh. I'm sorry.
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
NYU a while ago, and this is just one person.
Yep.
NYU a while ago said we want to be more green. We're going to put out a call for proposals from anyone within NYU.edu email can go to this webpage, register, and we want your ideas of how we can make the campus more green.
Mm-hmm.
One guy suggested, let's all the dorms have put in the recycling bins, and we'll have a contest, and the dorm with the most recycling collected per resident wins an award.
Mm-hmm.
So I write back, I've seen this pattern before. There's something called the Cobra effect. If you look it up on Wikipedia, it happened in India, and it happened with rats one time in France, apparently. So the story is this, that in India, there were too many cobras in some town. And so the government said, we're going to pay you if you bring in a dead cobra, because we want to enlist the people to help get rid of the cobras. Can you guess what happened?
What?
People started breeding cobras. Because you get paid to bring in a dead cobra.
Oh,
cobras kill, bring in, you get money.
I hate snakes. Yeah, okay.
It gets better.
Okay.
After that, the government's like, oh, this isn't working. So they say the program's over. So the people with the cobras, they let them out.
Oh gosh. And then they started multiplying.
So this crazy government program ended up actually paying for more cobras. It paid to make the situation, to exacerbate the situation. Do you see the relevance to if you pay people to collect recycling?
Right. Yep.
So you get you buy a bottle of a plastic bottle of water,
mm-hmm.
and I take a mug and go to the sink and fill up my mug. You win the award and I don't.
Right.
Even though I wasted less.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the guy was proposing that the award was going to be a trip somewhere by flight. So I write to the guy, Cobra effect, you're going to pay people, there's unintended side effects. And he writes back, and I've never met the guy. This is on some message board. I have no idea who this person is. And he writes back, I see what you're saying, but I still think it's a good idea. I'm going to stick with it. So he sees at least a potential problem.
Right.
And he still wants to do something that it looks to me will promote polluting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, man, NYU, their emails that go out, every now and then you get an email from the president of the university, and he talks about how it's a super green. He talks about two separate things. One, how the campus is really green, and two, how NYU is this global university. But he never talks about the same at the same time, because when he talks about the emissions on the campus, he talks about only the campus. Well, they got campuses in Abu Dhabi and Shanghai. So when he talks about it being global, now he talks about all these other campuses. So when he talks about pollution, he doesn't talk about the global. When he talks about the global, he doesn't talk about the pollution. But it's like, I don't know how, it's probably tens of thousands of flights. They're going back and forth. Well, not right now.
Right.
So they know the issues and they compartmentalize them so that when they talk about one issue, they don't talk about the other.
Right.
So this is someone who very well knows what's going on, could put two and two together, but doesn't. So this is an example, it seems to me, of someone who knows what's going on and isn't doing it. It seems to me sneaky, speaking out both sides of your mouth. But the reason I say this is not to call them out, is my goal is not to say this is hypocrisy.
Right.
It's to give you an example right now. But what my experience tells me is that they're missing out on a better life. That stewardship, in what everyone shares, is that it's really hard, but we really have to do it.
Right.
Everyone except me, as far as I know, I'm the only one sharing that actually you're going to prefer it after you switch. But if you don't have the experience, it sounds like crazy talk.
Right. Crazy talk. I don't know, Josh.
I'm not trying to win people over to my opinion.
Right. You're not trying to do that, but at the same time, it seems as though
well, people hear that, but that's not what I'm communicating. I'm falling into ruts that everyone expects to hear. I'm sure that when I talk to the people on Wednesday, that they're going to hear lots of things of me saying that I'm not saying. Like, it occurred to me after talking to you the other day, it probably would make sense for me to say, I don't have an opinion on the Second Amendment. I don't have an opinion on when life is formed. I'm not interested in getting into that. That's not like, I prefer smaller government. But I think this is an orthogonal, I'm not trying to sneak anything in. I don't have an opinion on all those other things. Right. Because I think people are going to hear that, even if I don't say otherwise. I've been thinking about, should I say it or not? Like, why bring it up? It's not relevant. How many things do I have to say I'm not talking about?
When you say you don't have an opinion on the other things, what other things are you talking? Are you referencing?
well, Second Amendment or when life begins. You know, there are
Right.
many wedge issues that environment has become a wedge issue. But I don't think it's a wedge issue. Do people want plastic litter on their lawns? I don't think it's a wedge issue. Do people want their children to have their IQs lowered because of heavy metals in the environment? I don't think it's a wedge issue. Should we have traffic lights at intersections? I think we, as a democracy, we basically like having traffic lights on our intersections. We like having double yellow lines on the road, even though it impinges on our freedom to do what we want. We could go on both sides of the street in principle, but I think we agree through democratic processes. Let's restrict our behavior in this regard. And no, I don't think people describe the double yellow line as red tape. Even though you could say it's keeping you from doing things, but I think we generally get. So I believe that there's overwhelming common ground on a lot of these environmental issues that will get double yellow line type restrictions on our behavior that we'll prefer having in the long run.
Right.
I mean, we have rules against littering. They're not very well enforced. I don't think anyone says that's an encroachment of government on our freedom, that we can't litter. I think you can't like honk your horn loudly, just arbitrarily. I think there's noise pollution laws as well. I certainly hope so. I don't want people like honking arbitrarily at like 2 a.m. when I'm trying to sleep. I hope that there's a law against that. There probably is.
Right.
And I don't think people would say, you're impinging on my freedom. They might, some might. But I think if the law goes through democratic processes, then, you know, it's not just not littering. There's other things. I don't think, I'm sure that there's laws against pouring mercury in the river.
Right.
I could, in principle, probably buy some gasoline in a can and just pour it into the Hudson River. I hope that there's a law against that. I don't know if people would object to that. And I think that there's room for people to say a lot of behavior that's now not regulated in that way could be regulated in the same way that we don't allow littering. Or for that matter, there's a lot of stuff that's very poorly accounted, that there's a lot of externalization of costs.
Right. That
I think, if nothing else, it makes what could otherwise be a free market not a free market, because it ends up subsidizing. If there's one company that just pours its waste in the river and another one doesn't, well, the one that pours the waste in the river may have a cheaper product, but actually to society it's a greater cost if the people who are hurt by that end up going to hospitals and we all have to pay for it. Right. Or let's just say somewhere there's a lab that is doing some experiments and a virus gets out and it turns out to cause a pandemic all over the world because what they were doing, I'm sure, let's just say for the sake of argument that there was a lab in China that was messing around with some coronavirus. And let's imagine there were protocols for that not to get out, but people are being kind of lax about it. I'm sure that there's someone there who's like, hey, make sure we're more careful about this. And that person might have been seen as extreme. Oh, you got to follow all the OSHA rules or whatever OSHA is, if there's an equivalent over there. And then it gets out, that's if this began in a lab and it was not intentionally released, that meant it was accidentally released, and probably someone broke a rule or wasn't really strictly following the guidelines that they should have. Right. And if someone was saying, hey, be more careful, they were probably called extreme, like you were saying about me. And I would hope that we'd keep that stuff more strict in the future. And let's say it was a wet market. I would say that I'd hope that if it was benignly, if it wasn't, some experiment going on in a lab, I would hope that we'd have rules to not have this stuff happen. Right. At least try to prevent it.
Yeah, but I don't think they would say that simply because someone was mishandling, a virus. And I know you were just giving a hypothetical, that they would say that the person who's saying be careful was being extreme. I mean, because that's at a different level.
Well, that happens all the time now. I mean, that's why whistleblowers have to be whistleblowers. It didn't work when they went through the chain of command. I mean, sometimes, who knows? I mean, there are edge cases all over the case, but some whistleblowers are whistleblowers because they were trying to follow the rules and the rules didn't work. And so they had to go to the media or something like that.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I mean, that's your opinion. But just going back to what you were saying, as far as, when I said that you were at the extreme level, let's go back to the conversation that we started out having, when you were saying that you feel as if though your parents, they just don't care.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I would never say someone doesn't care.
Okay.
Because there's a difference between caring and how you act on that caring.
Okay. So, well, I'm sorry. What was it you said, that they weren't trying, or?
I've been trying to understand their views. I don't totally understand it, but I think that basically, they've lived long lives, and they have things that are their things, and I have things that are my things, but they see this as like, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm just doing what I do over here. I'm doing what we've done for all this time, and I'm not hurting anyone. So I'm not going to try to change everyone else.
Right. But okay, so let's remove your parents from the equation. Let's say me. I'm not old, and I don't necessarily buy into everything that you're saying. I feel that I'm doing my share, and I feel that I'm being conscientious, and so by me not doing what you're doing, you're not saying that I'm a bad person. So what are you saying? what are you saying about me?
About you?
I'm certainly I'm not at the level where you are. I don't think I will be at that level. I don't think that I want to be at that level. I admire you for being at the level that you're at, but I don't think that that's necessary.
You don't think that what's necessary?
For me, what you're doing.
I'm not doing it for you. I'm not doing it for me either.
Exactly. So, so that being said, what are you saying about me? What are you saying? Because I'm not doing any of that stuff.
Well, I would lump you in with.
And I want to go. I fly. If I need to go someplace, okay, let me get my ticket. Now I'll be more conscientious as to wearing a face mask. But I don't see that this airplane is causing all this pollution, and if I'm not taking that plane, if it probably add a few more years onto the world or whatnot. I don't see that. So you say you lump me in with everyone else, and how are we being lumped? What category are we lumped into?
Well, I'm looking at this from a leadership perspective, and I want to find people who believe that what they're doing affects others and want to change that. Leadership to me is helping people do what they've wanted to do but haven't figured out how. There's a lot of people who want to do stuff and they haven't figured out how. That's why there's so many diet books in the country. I think diet books is like the number one category. I'm not sure.
Okay, let's take a step back. Still, how are you lumping us? Because if we stop doing some of the things that we're doing, of course, jobs will be lost. We'll stop flying. So that'll be phased out.
That's your opinion. That jobs will be lost.
But what will the airline do? Where are these people going to go?
Jobs in one area may be lost, but there may be more jobs in other areas.
Okay, but let's deal with the people that are flying right now. So if we were to stop it
everything you do is going to change the job distribution in some way. If you buy one product versus another, there's going to be jobs in one, not another. Right.
So that being said, where are we being lumped? Where are you taking us and dumping us to?
So from a leadership perspective, there's going to be people that I can help do what they want to do, but haven't figured out how.
Right.
So, and there are going to be people who I don't see that they disagree and they think that other strategies there's nothing in them that they want to change their behavior.
Right.
So broadly speaking, I want to speak to the first group.
Okay.
The second group, I'll get to them eventually, but I think there's billions in the first group. So it'll take a long time to get there. So I want to help. So there's lots of people who I think that they believe I think they're just like I was before in many ways, that they think there's no possible way I could live in the modern world without flying.
Right.
And to me, that sounds like a dependency that's not making their life better. And they just, until you experience the alternative, you feel like there's no possible way it can't possibly work.
Possibly, but you've flown to how many continents have you been to?
6.
Okay. How many countries?
A couple dozen.
Okay. Greta is all of 16, is she?
I think older now.
Greta
17.
Van Thunberg, whatever she calls herself. When she came here, she took a plane.
I think the first time.
Okay. Is that the only time?
Yeah, she took a boat another time.
Oh, she did? Oh, she took a boat. Interesting. So most young people, if you were to tell this to them, and those are the people you definitely probably want to try to get to at an early age, people who have not experienced a lot of the traveling and whatnot. So, to them, it's like, okay, if I do, if I don't. But still, there's that desire to want to go and see other places and do other things. So I would think those are the people that you would want to appeal to, as opposed to old farts who are set in their ways. They've done what they need to do, and they're probably not about to change. And they feel that what they are doing, that's good.
I want to work with the people who are polluting the most and are the most. I want to go for the biggest delta. I don't care, young, old. I want to go with the people with the greatest influence.
And have you identified the biggest delta?
Leaders of corporations, celebrities, people that everyone knows, people who are in the most number of other people's communities. Community influences
So people that
a lot.
Right, people who can influence others.
Yeah.
You're being sneaky there.
I don't think it's being sneaky. The number one predictor of people installing solar in their homes, someone told me, someone in the business told me, is how many of your neighbors already have solar. It's not how much money you're going to save. It's not your politics. It's how many people around you already have solar.
Right.
I'm being very, very overt about this. I mean, it's all over my blog or podcast.
Right.
But I believe that a lot of people, they grew up in a world with certain beliefs and certain systems that, 50 years ago, no one could have imagined that we could fill the ocean with plastic. No one could have imagined that we'd really warm the globe to where the sea levels would rise.
Right.
I mean, people did talk about it back then, as far back as then, but it was mostly, no one really thought it. So I grew up in a time when there was zero, why you wouldn't think twice about flying except the cost. Could you budget it? Could you afford it? Well, times have changed in two big ways. One is that while some may doubt it, a lot of people believe very strongly it's overwhelming that we are warming the planet and the sea levels are rising and all sorts of other consequences. So there's a lot of science measuring that. People can disagree with it, but there are a lot of people, let's just take the people who do agree with it. And so we know that that's happening, or many people believe that's happening. And the other thing is we're projecting we're having measurable effects. We're seeing the effects. So if we don't change our beliefs to a new understanding of reality, for the people who have that new understanding, it's very difficult. And people are living with the beliefs personally that they grew up with, but that's not the world we're in anymore. I think you can live in blissful ignorance for a while. I believe my life has gotten better by removing the ignorance and by acting. I'm trying to share that experience that I can only describe for myself as positive, and I don't want to share with people who are going to feel it's going to be negative.
Right.
I only want to share it with people who themselves expect that they'll find it positive. I think that's a very large number of people. And I think that once they shift, that their influence on others will also, people who were on the border before will start going that way too, because they'll see travel doesn't have to require burning fossil fuels.
So those who don't see it that way, we're living in blissful ignorance.
Those who, there are going to be people who disagree for reasons that I don't know what they are.
Right.
And that's not blissful ignorance. There are people who say they respect the scientists' views, but still kind of, they're like, don't tell me. I don't really want to know. It's a barely conscious, but still conscious choice on many people's part. Well, look, when I learned about that flying New York, LA round trip was a year's worth of driving, warmed the globe a year's worth of driving, I had in the back of my mind for years before that thought, this flying has got to pollute somewhat. Should I look it up? And I never looked it up. I could have looked it up at any time, and I never did. That was blissful ignorance.
Okay. Did you ever look it up? Oh, well, you did because you found out.
It fell into my lap. I didn't intend to find that information.
Uh-huh.
Well, once I found it, I couldn't forget it.
Uh-huh.
See, I'm looking at this from a leadership perspective. I'm not trying to tell people what to believe. If they believe something and their behavior is inconsistent with their beliefs, I want to help them. If their beliefs are different, that's someone else's job. I'm not trying to change people's beliefs.
Right. So what are you trying? I'm missing something here. I'm not able to connect the dots. Because I asked you earlier. I said, so where are you dumping us all? If we all think the same, we feel that we're doing our share. We don't feel that we need to do any more. And I said, well, what are you thinking about me? You said, well, I put you with all the other Americans. So
I thought I'd clarify that. It's
no.
I haven't read from you that you believe that we can really make much of a difference. My read of you is that it all might come to an end at some point, but you're not sure when, you're not sure how.
Right. But
there's not a lot there for me to work with. What I can work with you on is that there's you can say it better than I can, but it's a purity issue. There's something about putting plastic touching things in the wrong place.
Right.
And so that leads you to want a certain cleanliness in your environment. And I want to help you to the extent that it'll make your life better.
Right.
To act on that. Now you did act on it somewhat, and you went so far, but didn't want to go much more.
Uh-huh.
So there's not much. I'm working with the emotion that I'm reading from you, and most of it is like it's not that engaged on this issue.
Right.
Other issues strongly engaged.
Uh-huh.
So I can't lead someone if there's nothing really to work with. So I talk to other people.
Right. So you're
no
trying
good or bad with this. It's just
right. So you're trying to find those who possibly go the next level a lot farther than what
who will want more consistency between their beliefs and their actions.
Okay.
Who will want to look, here's a belief that most people have. What I do doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Only governments, only corporations can make a difference here. Individuals, it doesn't make a difference. Okay, here's another belief you can have. Well, I mean, this is what I was getting to with the TEDx talk was, why do we make movies about Oscar Schindler and not about the countless others who saw exactly the same thing happening around them, but they didn't act? And they said, well, corporations should do something or governments should do something. But we make movies about Oscar Schindler.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we honor Rosa Parks? Was she going to change? She wasn't by herself. She wasn't working alone, but partly she wasn't working alone because people before her had acted. Why do we put her in the history books? She wasn't going to change things all by herself, but she still acted. I would like to think that if at the time I could harbor Anne Frank behind a false wall in my house, that I would. Would I? I don't know. How much difference were they going to make? I don't know, but they did it.
Right.
I would like to think that I would operate a safe house in the Underground Railroad if I was living in that time. Is that going to stop slavery? Absolutely not. But we put them in the history books. I believe so that when the chips are down, that we follow in their footsteps. That's a belief that I have. Right. That I could be like Oscar Schindler. That I could be someone who, even if my actions are modest or even small, I can influence many others. And that will grow and grow and grow. And I wish that there had been more Oscar Schindlers. I mean, there wasn't just him. He wasn't the only one who did something like what he did. But I mean, should we make a movie about someone who saw what was happening and just said, I'm going to keep my head down and hope nothing happens to me? Right. That's a belief that I could make a difference, that any of us could go down in history as someone who acted when others didn't. Right. So there is I don't want to say a hope, but there's a belief that there are possibly others who are thinking the same or like-minded like yourself, and you're trying to help them get to the next level or to understand that they can
But because of as we discussed before, the forcefulness, the in your face is saying you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, they can't get there. But if they see that, hey, there is a path for you to get there, and it's not the path that you've been seeing. It's not the path whereby people are telling you that you're bad and that you're not doing the right thing. There are other paths of getting there. And hopefully
that may be more effective, but that's not what I'm doing.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be more effective. Look, I wrote a book on leadership. It became a bestseller, and this is not like Malcolm Gladwell number sales,
right.
But there's a lot of people out there who want to be leaders.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge opportunity for leadership, and no one sees it.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I want to get people who are interested in becoming leaders to see that this is a tremendous area of leadership. Right. If they just don't think about their own pocketbooks, they could at least realize there's a lot of corporations out there that could use a CSO, a chief sustainability officer, something like that. That's rising.
Right.
And it's not like companies are saying, let's create a CSO position, but if you do what it takes to become a CSO, you could probably get a job with major corporations, because that's a growth area, all the more so with this virus.
Right.
So there's huge opportunity, but people see it as, but I want to go see the Eiffel Tower. But if they see it instead as, I could advance my career, or I could become the leader that I've always wanted to be, I could really help people achieve what they've wanted to. And I think there's enough aligned interests that people would realize the best way I can, leave my mark on the world, leave a legacy, is to do, they have to, it's in their world, they have to see the details, but something about cleaning up the air, land, and water.
Yeah.
I think there's tremendous opportunity for that. And I think there's billions of people who want leadership in this area.
Yeah.
And there are going to be people who say, don't waste my time. Fine. That's not who I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just some areas. I think that, I did this episode on Muhammad Ali. He was I believe he was the first major figure to not just speak out, but also act against the Vietnam War, against the draft, because he was drafted and he refused to be inducted. And so he was prosecuted. And at the height of his career, at the height of what would have been his career, they took away his boxing license and they took away his passport. So he couldn't make a living boxing, and he couldn't leave the country to do it anywhere else. Right. And so he was going broke, and he was going around college campuses speaking his mind. Basically going broke, not winning titles when he could have been winning titles. And that began many other well-known people, including Martin Luther King, to speak out against the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. Well, I think if you lead Martin Luther King, you qualify as a leader. And I believe that's a major thing that took him from being just a heavyweight champion of the world to being a statesman of one of the great figures of the 20th century and even of all time. Right. And that's the opportunity that I think is available to any figure of, comparable proportion. It could be, that's why I always talk about LeBron, Oprah, Serena. That opportunity is there for them to have a legacy on a Muhammad Ali level. Right. I don't know. I didn't know him. I wasn't there. There's lots of things that I don't know about, but there's lots of celebrities talking about this stuff. But DiCaprio comes to mind as someone who appears to believe very strongly in this, but I believe he's undermining his message that I believe he strongly believes in, but he's not acting consistently with it, because he's flying, he's doing all the stuff about the climate, and then the emails come out that he's flying back and forth across the country like every 2 weeks. Right. He wants I believe he wants a legacy, and I believe that legacy is available to him if he behaves consistently with the values. Right. But he's not. Mm-hmm. I would love for him to take over whatever name I'm making for myself. I would love for him to surpass me like I'm standing still, because he actually is leading including through his behavior. Right. I'd love to help him get there. Mm-hmm. Just as soon he did it faster without me. Right. I don't know how this sounds. I'm really going on here. No, I'm listening. I thought people knew this about me, but apparently they don't. It's a leadership perspective as opposed to a management perspective. Uh-huh. That is, I'm not trying to get people to comply with me. I'm hoping to inspire those who are looking for inspiration to act.
But I still think there will be the element that people feel as if though you're saying that what they're doing isn't good enough. Because of the intro where you said, what your parents, you felt as if though, and I can't remember the words exactly, I would have to play back the tape. I felt that what they were doing is that this is fine, that they just didn't want to change it or something along those lines. I mean, and that makes it seem as if though you're saying that, they're not doing enough. They should be doing more. And because again, I mean, I look at myself, I feel that what I'm doing, I mean, I can't measure it against what you're doing, but I feel as though I am doing just as much, although you feel as though that you're really there at the cutting edge. But again, you're saying that I'm not saying do what Josh is doing. But at the same time, it seems as though you are saying that because it makes it seem as though what I'm doing isn't enough.
I want to distinguish what I reacted to with my stepfather when he bought the onions.
Uh-huh.
I asked him, have I ever said anything about you eating meat? Have I ever said anything about you eating fish? He said, no, you never said anything about those things.
Uh-huh.
I'm not measuring good enough, bad enough.
Uh-huh.
The issue there was if he served me meat, I would say, no, thank you.
Right.
And he was serving me pollution. If he gets his own packaged food, that's his business. I don't tell them about their packaged food.
Pollution.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to put it that way, John.
I don't know. I would call it Twinkie pollution, although I wouldn't call it eating.
He's serving you pollution. Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, the way I've been thinking about it is...
Wait, but I've got to say this. Okay, you see that example. He's serving you pollution. And then you gave the example of Hitler. Those are things that other people will feel as if though that you're coming down like really hard by using those. Hitler serving you pollution. It's like, ouch. I mean, I don't know if there's another way you could put it, but certainly not Hitler and certainly not serving them pollution.
Well, one way I've been putting it, how about this one? Imagine someone buys you a sweater, beautiful sweater, and they say, I got it from it was made in a sweatshop. It was made by a 10-year-old kid who works 18-hour days, has to ask permission to go to the bathroom. Does it change your view about the sweater? Would you wear it more? Would you wear it less? Would you accept it, not accept it? Someone buys you a ring. It's got a blood diamond in it. Do you accept it? Do you not accept it? Does it change your view about it?
So let me just make sure that I'm understanding the context. So before you give me the gift, you will tell me this is how this gift came about. You're going to give me the background.
This is sweatshop labor produced piece of clothing.
Then I would say, if you thought enough of me to get me that particular gift, I will accept that gift.
Will or will not?
I will accept the gift. I will remember what you said about it. And I will either wear the gift and tell the tale and say, if someone says, oh, that's a nice sweater, it is a very nice sweater. However, you should know how the sweater came about.
Okay, now let me make it more consistent with what's happened here.
Okay.
After this happens, they buy you another sweater, also made in a sweatshop, and then another and another. And then at some point, they say to you, you're looking a gift horse in the mouth. Why are you questioning the sweater? But you've told them, actually, I'm not sure if you told them, don't do it again. Or if you said, I don't like sweatshop labor sweaters. At what point, at some point, you probably say, quit with the sweatshops.
Well, yeah, I would say, okay, if you're going to give me the sweater, I know the story, and I'm accepting the sweater. So apparently, I don't know why you're telling me the story, but it has no bearing on me. You want to give me the sweater. Are you trying to scare me off, or are you trying to see if I'm going to accept the sweater? You have gone and gotten the sweater that was made at a sweatshop. You're now bringing it to me. Is there an issue with you with the sweater? For you getting that sweater from the sweatshop?
I'm not sure if my point is.
So why? But so why? My thing would be, why would you keep getting me the sweater if that is a story you're going to constantly tell me?
What you're saying doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure I follow. What I'm saying is that, all right, let's just say someone buys me a sweater and it's a sweatshop sweater, and I say, I don't want it, but let's just say I say, all right, I'll accept it, but really, I don't like getting stuff from sweatshops.
Okay.
And then someone buys me another piece of clothing from a sweatshop.
If that same
I'm
person
like,
brought you the sweater, right, I would say,
and someone buys me another.
right,
And I say, I told you I didn't like that. And then they buy me a third. And I was like, I told you I didn't like this.
right.
At some point, I might say, would I be crazy if at some point I said, I will not accept any more clothing from sweatshops?
No,
Is that crazy for me to
that's
say
a
that?
different context. That's in a different context. I see what you're saying now. So if you're constantly, if I didn't like the sweater, if I said, okay, thank you for the sweater. However, the sweater was made here, and unfortunately, I cannot accept the sweater. Okay, I would just be honest. If the person were to tell me, here is a sweater that I have for you, and it came from this sweatshop, and I'm thinking, no, okay, I don't like the child labor. I don't like all that, so I cannot accept the sweater. However, if I accept the sweater the first go around, and then the sweater comes back, I'm like, okay, well, you accepted it. I would think you accept the second. And then if I say, no, no more sweaters, that I can see the person saying, don't bring me any more sweaters. I don't want to accept the sweater. I could understand that.
And so at some point, if you say, is that made in a sweatshop? And they say, you're looking to gift horse in the mouth. You're like, you know about me that I don't want to get this.
Right.
That's the
Right.
situation.
Right. Okay.
This was not the first
Okay.
bag of onions.
So now let's
This was
put it
not
into
the first-
context. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying now. So yeah, so how has it been so far living at home? So you say that they're out and you feel freedom.
Oh, they're
and,
back now.
Oh, okay. Are you ready to go back home to New York?
Yeah, I mean, coming up is my sister, their grandchildren, so my sister's kids, my nieces and nephew,
Uh-huh.
they're in Queens and they're talking about coming up here. So I might, when they, however the kids are brought up, some vehicle is going to go back to the city. So I might go in that vehicle back. But
Okay.
I don't know when those things will or won't happen.
Uh-huh. So are you looking forward to, are you counting down the days or?
Well, you're one of many people I know in Manhattan and Queens and Brooklyn, and I've been in touch with a lot of people, and none of them have gotten COVID,
No.
and they've all, when I came out here, I expected that May and June would probably be the peak months. The friend that I spoke to who is really into the stuff, following these things and predicting and stuff like that, he said that the summer months probably not that serious because the city's often pretty empty in the summer anyway. Right. Relatively speaking. I mean, still a lot of people. Right. He said now September, October, if schools are back in session, that could be a big issue. If that could, people coming to one central place, that could really spread things a lot. He's got 2 daughters that are in school, so he's really stuck. He's like, if school's in session, I'm going to go back in the city, and he's like, then I'm certainly going to get coronavirus, right? Because he's got 2 daughters, and he thinks it's inevitable. So, but June, July, August, probably. I think that I know the protocols that will protect me from getting the virus. If I do get the virus, I don't have underlying conditions, or what do you call them? You know,
communities. Yeah.
So I think the risk to me is not that great. And now, could I come back out here? I'd probably have to quarantine before I came back out here. Right. If I did go home. So there are issues. It's not a simple choice.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because I have never calculated it that way, that there's a possibility that I might get it or not. I don't know. My view on it is completely different. I never thought that we were going to have those high numbers that they were saying.
The refrigerated trucks outside the hospitals with the bodies, the mass graves on what's it called, island, Hart Island.
Right, but I mean, speaking with people who, one of the doctors who works in Brooklyn, and I was asking her, and one of the things that she mentioned, she said, what you have to keep in mind is that people are dying every day in the city. And one of the reasons why they were saying social distancing is that they didn't want people to get sick and then be a burden on the hospital infrastructure, because we didn't have enough hospitals. But then, you know, they had the Javits Center, they had the U.S. Comforter come in, then the hospital set up in, Central Park, and they were barely used. They really didn't need to use them. So she came back and she said, and so what you have to realize is that there are people that are dying every day in the city for any number of reasons. So when you take people that are sick from the virus, and they have all these people that are dying, it's like, okay, where do we put the bodies? There's only so much space they have in the hospitals and the morgues to keep them there. So you have to bring in the refrigerator trucks and put some of the bodies there. Well, that's not to say that all those bodies were people that had died from COVID-19. And that's one of the things that I'm concerned with, is that people who did die probably died of other ailments. But let's say because they had COVID-19, they'll say, okay, this person died of COVID-19. And it probably didn't. That's probably not the case at all. Because there were many people who died that were infected, but COVID-19 wasn't the underlying reason of the death. There was something else. And we probably will never know what the actual numbers are. I think we're at like 90,000 at this point. So within that number, how many truly died from COVID-19? How many died of other communities that they might have had? I would like to know the numbers.
Well, yeah, no one.
And we
No
will probably never, right.
Because there's political reasons to overcount, and there's political reasons to undercount.
Exactly. So, but just going back to what you're saying, I never calculated it that, okay, I'm in the city, there's a possibility I'm going to get it. And interestingly enough, I saw a report the other day, I think it was in Bloomberg, that said that the people that live in my part of town, Lower Manhattan, there aren't no cases. Which
Lower Manhattan is
right.
like much
that's
much
interesting.
lower.
Because I would think because we're near Chinatown, or that's the only hospital pretty much downtown New York, Presbyterian Hospital, that services, the area, I would think that we would have had some, but not at all. And I will speak to the point that while though Manhattan itself slowly opening up, past couple of Saturdays, I had gone out on a bike ride, and I saw people, along the West Side Highway that were out sunbathing in small groups. I saw people at the seaport hanging out, people at Battery Park. They've opened up the huge field there. It was closed, and that I was shocked that they opened up the field, because it's fenced in. And when they open it up, they put up a huge flag saying, this is the only way you can come in. This is the green flag. And then they have a red flag on the other side. This is the only way you can go out. So when I saw people inside, I'm like, okay, I don't think they opened up the park. And this was last Saturday. And lo and behold, they had opened the park up for people to go in and to enter and to leave. It's still scarce. Now, that's in Manhattan. Okay, with a friend, a ride in Brooklyn, and it's not as scarce. It's not as crowded as it normally is, but people are out and about. I wanted to go to see what the beaches look like, Coney Island. And the police were there. They allowed people to get on the beach, the boardwalk, which was closed. Coney Island itself was closed, except for some of the restaurants. And people were on the beach. It was kind of windy, so they were just like in different pockets. Drove. Okay. Different pockets. So a friend took me there. So because I wanted to see it for myself. And then we went to, so that was Coney Island. And then for a walk, Rockaway. And then there's another beach in Queens. Is it Breezy? I think it's Breezy Point. So there's a beach there also. We looked at, and it wasn't, people were on the beach, but it wasn't crowded. Then we went to, I think it's Asbury Park in Jersey.
All the way down there.
Yeah. And just to witness, to see for myself. And it wasn't crowded. There were people that were out and about, just, loitering around looking. Again, it was windy, so no one was, in the water. But as it gets warmer, I'm sure people are going to want to go and take a dip.
Oh yeah.
The water. So, so again, I don't, to this point, I don't see it as if though that, I could possibly get the virus and, I'm going to be well. If I do, I'm in good health. But a lot of people do view it like that, if I get here, if I'm in the city, I might get sick, and et cetera, et cetera.
By the way, I don't view it that way. Like I probably would be okay. But if my chances of dying are 1 in 1,000, that's way too high for me. And that's something like what it would be for me. And I'm fully prepared. If I go back in the city and can't come back out here, I'll go for until there's a vaccine. I'm gonna mask and gloves and still distance.
I don't think the gloves will help.
okay, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah, because I mean, I was
don't
doing the
mind an
gloves.
overabundance of caution.
Right. I have a, but when you think about it, I mean, I think you're more, it cause more harm than to help you, because you're going to have the gloves on. Everything you touch, you have your gloves on. Okay, then you're going to take the gloves off. So what good did that do? Because you still got to wash your hands. So
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at taking the glove half off and then using the part that's in to take the other half off, so that I actually don't touch the outside with my hands.
Right.
But then I
Well,
still wash for 20 seconds.
yeah, well, good luck with that in the heat. I mean, the masks are just intolerable when you're on the outside. When I was in the sun, I thought, oh my God, this is killing me. I do wear the mask.
Mhm.
I'm planning on taking a subway ride tomorrow just to see what the subways are like, and I will have the mask on. I think when this is all said and done, I will continue to wear the mask, for the simple fact that I know my hygiene. I don't know what other people are doing, and people are rather dirty and nasty on the trains, sneezing and coughing and whatnot. So I might even put on my gloves when I get on the train, because you have to hold the pulse sometime. You know, I do carry my bottle of alcohol that I spray before I enter, when I get on my elevator. And fortunately, I haven't gotten on the elevator with anyone. It's been like, no one's here. There are people in the building, but I haven't seen a lot of people. So before I get on the elevator, I'm spraying, just in case there are little droplets that are there. When I sit, I'll spray. When I go to the market, they do say that you have to wear a mask. And in some instances, some of the stores will not allow you to come in without a mask on. And if you take the mask off, they will tell you, you've got to put your mask back on. And something else that's interesting is that cash. Some of the stores will tell you, we're not accepting cash. So that's, yeah, those are the new changes. And I wonder how long this will last.
Yep.
Rather interesting. So, well, Josh, this has been great. And I hope my viewers tune in for the next episode of Isolation. I hope you enjoy this. If you want to know more about
what's
me,
going to happen someday, we're going to be in like the double digits. Soon we're going to hit double digits. Like 10.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be unbearable wearing the mask, because that thing is not comfortable. And people, I mean, like the carbon monoxide, like I hate to think about it. I mean, I will wear it, like I said, when I'm around other people, because I will not feel comfortable. And once this is all over, if they do get a vaccine, if they do get this under control, I will continue to wear my mask, because I just, no, people are dirty. So I will continue.
What if there are people who, if there's enough people who think, look, I'm doing my part, I'm doing the best I can. You can spread the virus, as you know, you can spread the virus long before you know that you have it, before you show symptoms. That means there are going to be a lot of people who feel like I'm doing my part, but aren't.
Really, Josh?
Do you see what I'm getting at? I mean,
yeah, I know where you're getting.
It's how they feel about it. It would really suck to get a virus from someone who felt that they were doing their part, even though they weren't. And the virus doesn't care about your opinion. It cares about your behavior.
But here's the thing. If your mouth is covered.
I'm sorry, it's not that I said it. It's not that the virus cares. The virus doesn't react to your opinion. It doesn't respond to your
emotional needs.
It responds to your behavior.
Well, I think that if the person is, we'll think of it this way. And because I thought about it when I was watching people at the beach. So they're completely covered. They have their mask on. Some of them have their gloves on. And I'm like, okay, so if you're all covered up, what is the need for social distancing? Because I'm covered and you're covered. Now, let's say if something is on our clothes, and they're saying now that, it doesn't last long on a surface, so you don't have to wash everything down, although I'll continue to do it. So if we're all covered, why are we still doing this 6 feet here and 6 feet there?
Well, in principle, that's a question that could be, you could do experiments without gloves, without distance, and you could, in principle, measure that. And presumably over time, if they find that it's belts and suspenders, you don't need both, then they'll probably relax it. And I mean, because there are people who are going to want to do that experiment, and they'll get papers published, and they'll make a name for themselves as the person who found out that this is safe or this is not safe. Right. And so I don't. Well,
there's a doctor from Stanford who's saying now, a professor rather, who's saying that the whole social distancing thing is, he doesn't believe in it. He said, it's not getting us anywhere. I don't know how true that is, but he said that it's not getting us anywhere. And he's been saying this for quite some time. Only now, his voice is being heard after the mass hysteria. And people are now like, wait a minute, summer is upon us. What's going to happen? And I always find that interesting, that there are always people out there that are refuting what Dr. Burke and Dr. Fauci are saying, but their voices have been suppressed. Now, slowly, these voices are coming out.
Yeah, this is why I went in a leadership direction, not just a science direction. I think the science is an input to our decision making, but it's not the final word.
Yeah.
And I mean, stuff can seem overwhelming to me that doesn't seem overwhelming to others. And ultimately, I believe that as a society, the best route that we have is through democratic processes that people generally agree on is fair. We're always going to disagree. There's very few things that everyone agrees that that's the way the law should be.
Right.
And so that's why I go in the leadership direction. I don't think that there's any hard and fast answers.
Right.
I really do. I very strongly believe that most of the major environmental things, when people calmly can get to it, that a lot of the main ones they'll see as double yellow line type issues.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of things. I mean, that's why the EPA Act passed under Nixon was that there's a strong consensus on a lot of things at the time. It's been, opinions have changed, but I don't think that much.
Right.
And that's one of my models. And, there are lots of things that bigger changes have happened in the past. I mean, slavery used to be on the books. It used to be legal.
Right.
I hope we never go back on that one. And I don't think people mind that you can't own slaves now. It's
right. Exactly.
It's not impinging on someone's freedom to have slaves. To say, I don't think. Maybe there are people out there who are saying, "Look, it's my freedom. I want to have slaves. Let me have slaves. You can't stop me." Maybe that's being said, but I hope not. And I'm happy to keep that regulation up. You're not allowed to have slaves. You're not allowed to put people in your basement and lock them up or something like that.
Yep.
I hope that wasn't another extreme case.
No.
Well, slavery was on the books. I mean, that's not like a hypothetical case.
Right. Absolutely. And I often remind people of that at one point it was legal. So.
And I'm sure that there are people in 1850 who are saying, what can I do? Or saying, but what about jobs? I mean, certainly it affected the economy. I mean, cotton was king. They felt like it was a great thing, the people who had the power. And I see, I mean, not a lot of things aren't parallel today, but a lot of things are parallel today. Anyway, we can pick this up next time.
Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed us. This is Rob J. H1. You can follow me on Twitter, and Josh
at joshuaspodek.com.
Thank you. Please join us next time for part 8 of isolation. And I don't know if we'll be as deep as we were tonight, but stay tuned and find out. Thank you.